Yeah, oftentimes when we're thinking about saving for retirement, in order to calculate how much money we need for that goal, we'll look to things like historical returns and how long we expect to live based on how long people have lived in the past. But the reality is that we're gaining about a year every decade in terms of longevity after the age of 65. And in fact, the biggest gains in longevity are being made by people who are in the highest income categories. If you look at the top Social Security earners, they live about 5 years longer than the bottom half of Social Security earners. So that means that you can plan to live longer in retirement than you might expect. But that means that you have to have more money. And not only do you have to have more money because you're living longer, but today we have lower yields on safe investments like bonds, and we also have stocks that are priced significantly above the historical average. And normally in historical periods when stocks are as expensive as they are right now, the return that you can expect on stocks, especially over near-term time horizons like 10 years, has been significantly lower than the historical average. So the best bet for how a portfolio is going to perform in the future is probably going to be less than in the past, and you're going to have to fund more years in retirement. And that means that the optimal savings rate is higher than it was historically, and especially for higher earners, because Social Security makes up a smaller percentage of their income in retirement. It may be the case that if you just use historical averages in terms of asset returns and longevity, optimal savings rate would have looked more like 8%, but tomorrow, we're probably going to need to save more like 14 or 15% if you're in one of those higher income categories, just to be able to maintain your lifestyle in retirement. We also looked at from different ages, and what we found was when you start savings for retirement is going to have a big impact on the optimal savings rate. If you start early enough, say 25, 30, 35, then maybe you only need to save in that 12 to 14% range. But if you start later, then you're going to have to save more. So if you start saving when you're 40 or 45, you may be into close to 20% as your optimal savings rate. And for a lot of people, that's not very realistic. So we also look at how changing, for example, the retirement date can impact the optimal amount of retirement savings for somebody who's facing a low return environment, who's going to plan on living longer than people did historically. And what we found is that, yeah, you can reduce the optimal savings rate significantly from something more like 22% down to maybe 17% simply by deferring retirement from age 65 to age 67 or age 70. I think that today's reality means that you need to have a realistic conversation with your client about how much it's going to take to save in order to meet their retirement income goals. And the reality is depressing. I mean, there's no other way around it. People are living longer, which is not depressing in and of itself. Asset returns are lower, which is kind of depressing. That means that you need to have different types of behaviors in order to meet your long-term goals. And when it comes to retirement savings, you really only have two choices. You can either save more or you can retire later. You can't necessarily expect to take more risk with your portfolio, because all risk does is really increase the range of potential outcomes in terms of the size of your portfolio by the time you hit retirement. Really, the levers that are the riskless levers are saving more and retiring later.